I'd like to welcome you to a video series we here at the Spa City Review are calling Saratoga in Shutdown. The purpose of this series is to create a forum for the citizens of Saratoga to discuss the impact of the coronavirus pandemic on our community. If you would like to offer some information or if you'd like to be a guest on the show, feel free to contact us at news@spacityreview.com. I'm Peter Burley, and I'll be acting as host for this episode. In a few moments, we're going to bring on Meagan Zeim, who has created a restaurant directory to be used during the shutdown. But before we do that, I wanted to introduce the audience to the Spa City Review and its founder, Samuel Moyer. I'm going to bring Sam in right now. Sam, thank you for joining us. I thought it was important for this first episode to introduce the audience to the Spa City Review in general, and specifically to you, the founder of the Spa City Review. Briefly, before we tackle the main topic of the episode, which is how this pandemic is affecting restaurant workers in Saratoga Springs, what was the inspiration behind creating the Spa City Review?
Yeah, sure thing, Peter. I'm always happy to come on, and thank you for agreeing to host this show. I think you're a great host. So the inspiration originally was simply that I love writing, and I've always loved writing, and I love Saratoga. I used to contribute to some of the news organizations around here, but that's evolved. I'm more into digital media now, but this is an opportunity, or I really miss writing enough that I wanted an opportunity to do it again. So it just so happens I'm really good friends with some other writers in the area who are very talented, and also artists who are very talented, and we wanted to come together. And in July, we collectively decided that we were going to launch this site. I wouldn't have done it if it was just myself, so the fact that everybody else wanted to do it kind of inspired me. So the first few months were more just, we wanted to produce some art, some light content that was engaging, helpful to the community. And that's really our mission anyway. But of course, recent events have forced us to kind of, focus on the restaurant industry. So.
I know the situation has changed your game plan, because when we had spoken a few months ago and we were going to do a podcast, the idea was we were going to do an in-studio podcast on different topics in Saratoga, and then this happened, so we're doing this podcast remotely. So I know it's changed up the game plan, but for me personally, what you're doing right now is important stuff, trying to connect people and tell this story from a local perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. We're approaching it in our own way. Obviously, there are really good news organizations in the area with great journalists, and they're working really hard and approaching it in their own way. We just want to help in any way we can, and that's the whole purpose of forming this organization. So now is a time to step up. I've got really good friends in the restaurant industry. I've got friends who own bars, work in bars and restaurants, and it's just been it's been hard, watching the way, and it's changed so quickly week to week too. We wanted to come in and tell the story, and we're going to continue to do that the best way we can for however long this lasts. Yeah.
Sam, do you have time to join the panel? We're going to bring Meagan in momentarily, and I think it would be great if you could hang out for this first one as we figure out this format.
Yes, sure thing, Peter.
The topic of this evening's episode is how this shutdown affects local restaurants in Saratoga Springs, and particularly how it is affecting local restaurant workers. Today, we're joined by Meagan Zeim, who is a contributor to the Spa City Review, and she is also responsible for the creation of the Spa City Review's emergency restaurant list. Meagan, welcome. And what was the process like creating this list?
Well, I belong to a couple different groups on Facebook, and I think that we all, when things started happening, everybody sort of just was more involved in social media than they normally would be. And two of the groups that I belong to, one of them is called 51 Eats, which is primarily local chefs, restaurant workers, back of the house, front of the house, all of those industry people. And then the other one is 518 Foodies, which is more of a consumer-based, it's the people that are going out and eating in the restaurants that just really love food that post on that group. And I saw people asking on a daily basis where they could find a particular kind of food, or to know if somebody was open, if they were open, were they open for takeout only? Were they open for delivery? Could they have food, dropped curbside where they could just pick it up without any contact? There were a lot of questions being asked. And I thought that it would be functional to have some kind of a running a list to let people in the community know where they could go.
So essentially, instead of somebody having to go to each individual website, you have compiled all the information into one list, so people can go right through and see which restaurants are serving, when their hours are, and what the system is.
I have, and we continue to add to it and try to update. I know that there's some restaurants that weren't open that decided to try to be open. Some that were open that needed to close. So we've been updating periodically to make those adjustments and try to be as current as possible.
I remember, the situation has changed a little bit in this past week with the passing of the stimulus package and the enhanced unemployment benefits. But I remember, a week or a little over a week ago, how things were very uncertain. They're still uncertain now. But at the time, with restaurants not being able to open up their doors for customers, there really was kind of an uncertain and bleak outlook. And this list represented a way for us, the Saratoga community, to still support our restaurants during this shutdown.
Oh, definitely. And I think that people have. I think the response has been good. And I think that having links to gift cards, a lot of places, a lot of restaurants have online links, access to where you could buy gift certificates, gift cards for future use. And there's places that are offering discounts on those too. So you actually get a little more bang for your buck.
This is the first time the three of us have been together in this format since this happened. And I just want to touch on how uniquely affected Saratoga Springs is going to, how uniquely affected Saratoga Springs is by all this. I've spent most of my adult life working in the food and beverage industry in one capacity or another, as a line cook, as a bartender. My first job in the restaurant business was when I was 19. I was a dishwasher downtown. So, these are the waters I've lived and breathed in for many years now. And when this all started happening, it just seemed to me like this was the timing and the nature of this pandemic seemed downright cruel to Saratoga Springs in particular. I mean, this is the time when patios would be going up on Broadway. And right at, after the long winter, everybody looks forward to things starting to pick up as the weather improves. And this hit right at that time. So, I mean, that's part of the reason I think we're doing this series right now, is that Saratoga is uniquely affected by this in the area, the Capital District.
Saratoga has an enormous concentration of restaurants in what is, comparably a small area. I mean, we have, and to some degree that is catered to the influx of people that come in for track season. But we have a lot of businesses, and of course, I mean, this I
can't even keep up a lot of the time with new places opening up. Yeah, and there are so many new places that have just opened, and I can't imagine what it's like to have just opened your dream and then have this uncertain timeline going forward.
I think that a lot of restaurant owners, business owners, and the people that are working there are definitely curious about what the survivability is going to be for them.
Yeah, Yeah, and I know we're definitely going to do a follow-up episode when we bring in where we bring in some owners of local restaurants to get their perspective. Now, as far as workers are concerned, it does seem like to me the situation it seems a little more bearable if we take into account that there's federal aid to be taken advantage of, and that unemployment has now been enhanced. And that seems to me like for a great majority of restaurant workers that can make this situation bearable for what could be months going forward.
It looks good. I think it looks great. I don't know that any of us. It's kind of yet to be seen, but
yeah,
what is being promised looks great.
I have yet to talk to any of my peers yet who have actually gone through the process. No one's received the care stimulus.
Yeah, that was just passed
yeah.
on Friday though, so I'm not sure that.
Yeah, I mean that's still in the beginning. You know, they're still figuring out how that's going to be distributed. But unemployment, I haven't yet talked to anybody who's gone through the unemployment process to see if what kind of checks they're getting. I know, I was concerned because some businesses were paying their servers and bartenders for 2 weeks was the plan. They were going to pay them for 2 weeks, but a paycheck for a server and bartender is greatly reduced because the majority of a server and bartender's income comes from tips.
Right.
So I was concerned how unemployment would handle that, but it does sound like there is an extra $600 per week that should compensate for that fact.
Right. Which, I mean, you have to apply for the unemployment first, I think. But yes, yeah. Which is in itself a process.
Yeah, well, I mean, just the developments of the past week and few days have at least suggested to me that if this goes on, longer, most people, if they take advantage of these things, are going to be okay.
Right, we can hope. Yeah, it's definitely good news, I think, for everyone.
However, that brings up the question. And which obviously, none of the three of us have any solid answers for, but when does this end? I know Sam and I were talking and we were saying if we were betting people, the track season doesn't happen this year. Now, NYRA has said they're going forward and they're going to open as scheduled, but it makes sense to me that they would say that because, ultimately NYRA doesn't get the last say. If there's still a ban on large gatherings, once we get into July, NYRA can't open, but it makes sense to me that they said they were going to stay on schedule because if they cancel now and there's a dramatic change and we are able to regather it, they might not be able to take that back. So it makes sense to me that they're saying they're going to open as scheduled. However, I'm not certain of that. I don't think we've hit peak yet. I don't know what your feelings are on that.
I could jump in here, I suppose. Like you said, none of us are really medical experts, even though I'm talking to some people that I think would be, valuable people to have on this show. It's tricky because there's so many moving parts at the same time. And I agree with you that you have to plan for the best. Don't just plan for the worst. So it's not surprising to me that people who depend on large crowds are moving forward that way with their bookings and things like that. But I think the reality of everything is, and here's where it gets tricky to me. Even if all the best case scenarios happen, which we're all hoping for, I don't know that you're going to get the same attendance anyway. Maybe you do. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe just everybody, it just can't wait to get out and get into a crowd. Because like you said, this thing when it's over, it's going to be over right as we start getting into our busy season here in Saratoga. So it's, yeah. And like you said, also earlier, this has changed so much every week, like week to week. I remember 3 weeks ago, this was happening and I thought, okay, well, this is a good time to talk to people who need marketing websites and stuff like that. So I do have a media company. I never used this platform at all for that, but it evolved from that to, okay, I'm reaching out to people and they're just really, really hesitant to, it's been a kind of a lesson in empathy for me, seeing the way that some of the people, the business owners are affected by this, the amount of stress they're in, because they don't know what's coming, and there's really not a good answer. So we have to stay flexible and be able to adapt. And I think I'd rather be talking about other things right now, because when we came together, we wanted to just be more in the art community and having fun and connecting people and writing good stories. But this came up and this happened, and it just changed everything. All of a sudden, there's this need for the directory that Meagan built, that we came up with. That became a need because people needed to be able to connect locally. We changed the way that people can move. So you change the way people move, you change the way the supplies move, and it just affects everybody. Every industry is affected. I can't come out of this good unless all the businesses come out of this good. So what I'm hoping for is that no matter what happens, and whether or not we go into track season or not, what I'm hoping is that everybody realizes that this is a possibility, and it's probably going to happen again. Maybe it won't happen again in 100 years, but we know this can happen. Have a backup plan, a plan B of how you're going to operate things. But nothing's going to bring in as much money as a crowded track season with everybody shoulder to shoulder. But there are other things you can do to kind of mitigate that. But yeah,
Sam, I'll say this is certainly, when we were talking about doing a podcast for the Spa City Review, this was not the subject matter we were going to tackle when we were talking months ago about doing a podcast. So my hope is that this video series about Saratoga and Shutdown will be brief. However, based on everything I've seen, I think we're in this for the long haul. Meagan, on a personal level, how is this? How are you dealing with this?
On a personal, like as a bartender, or
as a bartender.
As a bartender, and I think that all of my fellow industry bartenders and servers would attest to this. Like I think that we're all kind of missing interaction, social interaction. Like one of the biggest parts of our job is seeing people and talking to people, in whatever capacity that might be. I think we all kind of miss our customers. We miss interaction with each other, interacting with the back of the house. It's just kind of, it's strange not to see people. So for people that love to be around people, it's hard.
Yeah. Now I know there are some sites out there specifically designed to try to compensate bartenders now that they're not making tips. There was I saw that a gal in Albany had put together a spreadsheet of bartenders and their Venmo accounts. Do we have something like that here in Saratoga?
We are a part of something called, well, you can be a part of it. There's a site called Tip Your Bartender, which was organized by some business owners and people that work in the industry in Albany. Mm-hmm. And it's well, we can put the website up right here.
We'll throw up the link to that if we have any local bartenders who want to jump on in
really easy.
On that.
Really
because
easy.
I know so many patrons who are missing their bartenders right now, and I think it's important to let people know how to contribute, because I think a lot of people out there do want to contribute. It's just how do they do it?
Right, and there's a lot of places too. Not a lot of places, but there are a handful of places in Saratoga who have also offered like a judgment-free meal. So like a whole harvest company is doing like a free salad. I think that initially it started off as being for kids.
Yeah.
But now they've extended that to people in the industry who might be struggling in some way. Saratoga's Broadway Deli is offering the same service.
Yes, and I know you talked to Dan more recently than I have, but he got overwhelmed with support.
He did really well, and good for him. I mean, he's doing something amazing for the community. So I'm glad that he received the donations that he.
You know, I think I'm gonna ask Dan to come on for an episode for the restaurant owner's perspective to see his take on this situation and some of the challenges he's facing as an owner.
Yeah, he would be great.
On behalf of our panel, Samuel Moyer, Meagan Zeim, and Peter Burley, I want to thank you all for joining us. And I want to remind you, we'd like your feedback. What we're trying to do here is create a forum for Saratogians to talk about how they're dealing with this situation. So feel free to contact us at this email address and let us know what you think. We appreciate your feedback. My friends, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it. First episode is done.
Thank you, Pete.